So I just don't want the videos to be too long. I could talk for hours. So I'm trying to separate this. I should have separated by friends and name. That would have been, but it didn't need all that, didn't need that. But so yeah, as I was saying, I would just kind of like hook my friends up with the guys. First it wasn't guys I was dealing with, then it was guys I was dealing with. Not really like I've dealt with, not really dealing with. If I was dealing with you, then no. But if I dealt with you and then I don't really care to after, and I think you're pretty cool, like you check some boxes in my head, like, oh, that'd probably be cool with you. Because my friends, to me, they didn't have good guys, and I'm classifying these guys that I dealt with as decent guys, boys, because we were young. So it took years later for me to figure that out and kind of just stop doing that. I mean, a lot of years later. I mean, 20s, horrible. And kind of admit to it too. I had to admit to it and kind of tell some people. Some people already knew, like the person who told me why I did that, she already knew, because I told her. But then I started to tell people that I was doing that too. But anyway, so Mo was more of my neighborhood friend. She was mad cool, loved her vibe, upbeat, happy. But what happened with that, I overheard some words being said about me and my home, and it kind of hurt. And the thing is, I was kind of lingering behind, so it wasn't like, you kind of end up hearing something that you wasn't really supposed to hear. You talk to your friends and you're like, yeah, like this and this and this about somebody. That's what happened. Why am I going this way? So I didn't want to hold that against her, because I was in her home and she was on the phone, but I was shocked to hear it, if that makes any sense. The way I grew up in my home, there was some days when my house was squeaky clean, and there was some days where my house just wasn't. It was like beyond not clean. So, her shower head went out, and one of her friends suggested she go and use mine. And she was like, basically, no, it's dirty. So in my head as a young girl, it hurt, but in reality, it's like I would have did the same thing. But that kind of broke our bond, because I felt like I felt weird, and it wasn't really on her. I love her to the moon and back. She's an amazing woman. That's what happened, and that was on me, because I was in my feelings. Like, yeah, there was things I said in my head, like, well, this and that, and well, you're not this and you're not that. In my head, I said that, like, so what if I could clean it? You act like you never seen my house clean before. You could have, but in reality, also, it's like, she said what she said. But that takes growth, right? So Mo, we kind of fell by the wayside. And then it was, of course, Ronnie's was always there. My relationship with her was around the world, tell mostly everything. Mostly. For some reason, I didn't tell her everything, but she knew enough. But there was so much more involved. She had a whole bunch of sisters, which became really good friends with me. So Ronnie's caught me at a very wild place. She was more the quiet one, like I said earlier, but I was more of the out there one. So I really didn't care, if that makes any sense. I didn't care for what nobody thought. I didn't care what nobody was doing, until I started to. So, of course, like I said, she would have sisters. And I was trying to figure out, like, I would go get bottles and come, always make sure she's involved. But it became weird, because I realized, like, when she would go do things, I would never get a call. And I'm just like, okay, well, I'm not getting a call. Like, call me. But I was so verbal back then. Like, I didn't, like, hesitate to communicate. I'm like, why y'all not inviting me? Why are you going to do this with other people? Why you know what I mean? Like, and she would laugh it off, like, But I'm like, nothing. The thing about it was, it was a partial thing, because I had acquaintances and things outside of her, and then she ended up building hers as well. But at that point, she didn't. It was just her and her sisters and a couple of neighborhood friends too. But I just used to kind of run the streets and do X, Y, and Z and then come back and be like, oh, come. So she used to come over my house a lot. I used to go over her house sometimes. But it became, I would say, very weird. Once you mix guys in the mix, everything becomes weird. And with her, I didn't know. You know what I'm saying? Until things were kind of like turning. I'm just like, a lot of the guys she knew, I knew. She met, I knew already. I was very, very much popular. I was around nothing but guys growing up for a lot of time. So I knew I played basketball, so I was around guys. So I knew a lot of guys, and so she started coming out her shell, meeting guys, talking to guys, you know, just really going through that pattern. But some of the guys she liked, I knew. And there was one guy in particular that she was like obsessed with. He was one of my really good, cool guy friends that I went to middle school with. And I'm thinking as this being a turning point, because I can't tell you. There was other little things that would happen, but this was like the turning point. So when she got involved with him, there was a lot of things happening, whatever. And I was there, but I had things to do. So I was in and out, doing whatever I had to do. Fake things to do, meaning like running the streets, okay? But for her, if we call, we talk on the phone, we be in person. Her sisters was at my house. She may have not been at my house, but her sisters were there. They had their own relationships going on with dudes from around my way, so I knew them as well. So it became very touch and go. But then there was like things being said, and I'm just like, I was very verbal back then, so I would nip that right in. But what are you talking about? What do you mean? Granted, I never put her on with any of the guys I talked to. Never did, never thought about it, never wanted to. No reason in particular. She wasn't there yet at one point, but at the same time, I don't know what it was of why it didn't happen. Maybe because she knew all the dudes that I know. So I don't know. She knew. I would tell her if I was talking to these dudes, and I don't freaking know. But it didn't happen that way. But what was I saying? So there were so many things coming back, like, oh, Leah, you said this. I'm like, what are you talking about? Oh, you said that. They said that. You said this. I'm like, what? So it became, why are you believing them over me? Like, what are you talking about? Why are you bringing them up and not just asking me? Why would you think I would say that? You know me. So I kind of became like, all right, whatever, at one point in time. But then it kept going. So it got to a point where I had to like go on three-way with her and call him and be like, can you say everything I said to you? Like, that was weird. But it was more so you trusting his word if he did say I said that over my word. Come to find out, he didn't say none of that. So once we would get off the phone, it would be like, yeah, so now what? So it just was never enough. Something kept going, like, oh, this, oh, this. I'm like, what? I'm not saying any of those things, nor am I doing any of those things. It ended up happening where, same thing happened with her sister, where she ended up talking to one of the dudes around my way, and he was playing like, oh, she's thirsty, or she's this and she's that, and I was sitting with her, you know what I'm saying, letting her listen, like, this is what he's saying. So, you know what I mean, basically dead him. It's not even worth it, or get what you get from him, whatever you want from him, but don't make it something serious, you know what I'm saying? Like, but that's how I was. Like, I didn't care. Guys were like in and out, who cares? And yeah, I was in relationships, but I still didn't care, because guys was no good. So with that situation, there became a problem, like, oh, something made up. Oh, Leah, you said. Out of that, all that came. I mean, that was years. So this was, Ronnie's was my elementary school friend. She's neighborhood / elementary school friend. We ended up going to the same school together in high school, and she was going to school with my sister in middle school. So we never lost that contact. I would go over her house and come get her, and we would just go do whatever. So this was like 16 years of friendship or something like that, or more. So I was in 8 years old to about 21. I don't know, you do the math. So yeah, so that ended on the fact that there was some, oh Leah, you did this, oh Leah, you did that, and me and her sister ended up fighting. And her sister Ronise, she was on some, yeah, that's all I wanted. And I couldn't go back after that. It was too much, because I don't have a problem with fighting, a fair one. I don't have a problem with fighting, period. I don't like to fight, but I didn't like the way it went down. It was weird to me. Like, if Ronise felt some type of way, you know what I'm saying, as my friend, as my best friend, I just knew she could have said something. And if a sister wanted to fight, she could have just wanted to fight, and that would have been, then I could have dapped it up and kept it moving, but I just couldn't. So I just basically told them I loved them and kept it moving. To this day, it's love. It's nothing. I have no malice, but that caused something in me. That was a turning point for me, but I still didn't realize it to 100% yet. So then I kind of just started hanging out with my family. And my cousin, long distance, she would come in and she would come back and forth from where she lived to come visit me. And that she was always like, I always, even though she's older, she was always like, my baby. Oh, that's my baby. That's how I would identify a lot of people, actually, but that's how I would identify her. That's my baby. That's my cousin. That's my baby. But when she would come around, I would be out. I had to go. I had to be where I had to be. Wherever that was, I was going. If you're not coming with me, then you're not coming with me, okay? But as we got older, we became even closer than we was more on full time, like, if that makes any sense. Like, we were on different levels so many times. But I was doing those things I said earlier with her, like, oh, put her on with dudes I talk with, and she's like real iffy about it, like, what are you doing? But I wasn't telling her at the time. You know, I did end up telling her eventually, but I wasn't telling her at the time. And you know, there was certain things I would do. She was very conservative around me. I was out there, you know, traveling, moving around, come on with these dudes, or let's go here, let's go here. And she was like, no, I'll stay back. Very conservative, very closed off. And I was just like, all right, bye, you know. So we really never, we did the double date thing once, but we really never had that intertwine between guys and us. And I never really thought about it until later, but that's fine. And then I had another friend, work friends started to come into play, but my best friend was my cousin. And with work friends, I did the same thing, try to put them on with dudes I talked to. And that's when my friend was like, why would you do that? I'm like, I don't know, he's a good guy. Like, she's like, no. And that's when I was like, oh, that's weird. No, that's weird, beyond weird. And I'm like, well, it's not that weird. And she's like, no, it is. But I don't have a name for what that is and why I did that. I just know that I didn't care. And I think it was a form of, like, it's stupid to do that. Sad a little bit. I really psychologically, if y'all know what that's about, yeah, I think, yeah, please let me know. But my work best friend, Shiko, she was younger than me, so I was more like a mother role to my friend, where I'm like, oh, try this, do this, don't do this, you know. And then this is where I was changing my life around, so it became very much different. On our friendship, we would eat, we would laugh, and we would work. And it was really good. Best job I've ever had besides Bradshaw, because it was just lovely. But I didn't classify Shiko as my best friend because I had my cousin. She's my best friend. Didn't realize, thinking I could have more than one best friends. None of my friends like to come together. At one point, none of my family and friends, they were always like, well, you always got Ronise around. You always got Ronise around. So they didn't like that. It was that everything I did, you know, with her, or I brought her. And so everybody kind of went their separate ways until, like I said, I got older and me and my cousin became best friends. So that's another chapter. I'm gonna pause the video here and then come back.